In this video, we're going to go over transformations, how to move a geometric figure around. The type of transformation that we're going to go over is an isometric transformation. This is where the size of the geometric figure does not change. It doesn't get smaller or bigger. Here's an example. Which pair of figures would not represent an isometry? Meaning, which ones have been moved, but the size has changed? For A, I have moved this apple, this image of this apple, from here to here. However, the size of the apple did not change. Same for B. Even though it looks like I've moved it, flipped it, twisted it around, the size of the object has not changed. Same for this one. Even though it looks like I may have flipped the object or twisted the object, the size of the object is still the same. However, for D, the size of these two objects are different. This one is smaller than this one. This one is not an isometry. This is not an isometric transformation. When we have these transformations, the actual act of moving it is called a translation. And in mathematics, we have special way to write the instructions telling you that something needs to be translated, something needs to be moved. We're going to start with points. Normally, an object has more than one point, and you would apply this to every point in the object. Right now, we're only going to consider translating or moving one point. So a point, if you remember, consists of an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. And that's what we have here. How do you write a point? It has to have parentheses, an x-coordinate, a comma, and a y-coordinate, then closing your parentheses. This arrow right here means you're going to translate it. You're going to move it. And this is the instructions for moving the x-coordinate and moving the y-coordinate. You're going to have an x, you're going to have plus or minus a number, then you're going to have y plus or minus a number. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Here's an example of a set of instructions telling you how to move the points of an object, or just move one point. You're going to take your point, whatever your x and y is, and you're going to use these instructions. You're going to plug it in here to get the new point. Here's our first example. Our first example is the point 2, 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to translate this point right here using these instructions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plot 2, 3. I'm going to go over 2, up 3. 1, 2, 3. Here is my starting point. These instructions up here tell me where I need to move, or how I need to move this point right here. So 2, 3 is going to be moved. 2, 3 is going to be moved using these instructions. That means I'm going to take 2 and add 3 to it, and I'm going to take 3 and subtract 2 from it to get my new point. My new point is going to be 5, 1. I plot this point. That means I go over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1. That means this point has been moved from there to there using those instructions. I can use these instructions again for a different point. These are in the instructions on how I'm going to move this point right here. That means I'm going to take -3, and according to this, add 3 to it. I'm going to take 5, and I'm going to subtract 2. And I'm going to get my brand new point. -3 plus 3 is 0. 5 minus 2 is 3. So I'm going to plot this point first. That means I'm going to go back 3. 1, 2, 3. Up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my starting point. And then once I move it, here's where the point is going to be. 0 means I don't move over any, but I still move up 3. 1, 2, 3. Here's my original point. My original point got moved to right there. This is how you use this notation to translate or move points. So what do these numbers behind the x and y actually mean? What they're going to do is they're going to ask you more in-depth questions and test your understanding of what the x and the y here mean. For example, if the number behind the x was positive, since we're dealing with the x, it moves left or right. If the number behind the x is positive, it's going to move to the right. If the number's negative, will the point move to the left or the right? It's going to move left. Same with the y. The y-axis goes up and down. So any number behind here is either going to move it up or move it down. If the number's positive behind the y, it's going to move up. If the number behind the y is negative, it's going to move down. So again, the number behind the x right here is going to move it left or right. If it's positive, it's going to move right. If the number behind the x is negative, it's going to move left. The y goes up and down. If the number behind the y is positive, it's going to move up. If the number behind the y is negative, it's going to move down. Here are the type of questions they'll ask. The figure being translated, meaning any point I put in here, will move how many units to the left or right? This controls the left or the right. It's going to move 1 unit. Is it going to move it to the left or to the right? Since this number is positive, it's going to move it to the right. The figure will be translated up or down. Okay, I need to look at the y to determine whether or not it's going to go up or down. How many units is it going to be translated first? 2 units. Is the 2 positive or negative? The 2 is negative. That means it's going to be moving down 2 units. Next example. I need to determine, using these instructions right here, if it's going to be translated left or right, up or down, and how many units. Left or right is my x. So I look at my x and I see how many units it's being moved. It's being moved 7 units. If this was positive, it would move to the right. But since it's negative, it's going to move to the left. The figure is going to be translated up or down. First thing I need to determine, is it going to be up or down? Well, it's a positive, so it's going to be up. How many units up is it going to go? 5 units up. Next example. I need to determine if the figure is going to go left or right. So looking at this, there's no number being added or subtracted. It's not going to move left or right. It's not being moved any units. Is it going to go up or down? I'll look at my number right here. It's negative. That means it's going to be going down. How many units is it going to go down? 6 units.